The following program is brought to you in part by the film Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace.
Welcome to another Charney report, and we're talking to you from Tel Aviv, Israel. Last week I reported to you that it was a balmy, beautiful day. Today it's a little bit rainy, but I don't think it should stop you from coming, because what is going on in this country is always the citadel of interest in the world. Today we are sitting with the very, very famous Tommy Lapid. Tommy Lapid is a man who founded a party called the Shinui Party. Shinui means change. And basically he says that Israel should be a pluralistic society. There are many who talk and think and write about the fact that he's racist. That is not true. I've interviewed Tommy before he had a big retinue behind him, as he does now. And his policy is really live and let live. Would that be correct, Tommy?
Yes, you are correct. We know each other for many years. I have been accused of this. It's total absurdity. I am a survivor of the Holocaust. To accuse me of racism is really more than strange. The reason I was accused is because I'm fighting the ultra-Orthodox Shas party, which is a Sephardi party, but I'm not fighting them because they are Sephardim. I am fighting them because they are misusing God's name in order to make money. They are corrupt. So when I fight them, they say I fight them because they are Oriental Jews. Nonsense.
It's perceived. I know you don't want to talk about how many seats you're going to get, but it looks like you're going to really gain a substantial amount of seats, much more. How many do you have now, Tommy?
I have 6. We have 6, and we will at least double and possibly triple our strength.
Which puts you in a very, very strong position, a very unique position. Today, as we talk, it's mid-January, January 14th, 15th. It's perceived that the Likud would get somewhere between 30, 32. This is after Sharon's problems with Cyril Stein, this fellow in South Africa who guaranteed a loan. Labor seems to get no traction whatsoever. Labor seems to be around 20. So if you had a calculator here, and let's assume for argument's sake that you took 15, you're getting 75% of the votes that Labor would get, and Labor has thousands, hundreds of thousands of people behind them. What causes this phenomenon, in your opinion?
Well, because there are two main issues that Shinui is heading, and that they are now becoming more and more popular. One is our fight for a pluralistic, secular society, as opposed to the prevalence of the ultra-Orthodox in our political life, which became rather unbearable because of their interference with our daily lives, and because they don't join the army, and because they don't work and don't pay taxes, and they have created the state within a state which everybody else has to support, and the great majority of Israelis don't want to have that anymore, and this is one of the reasons for the support I get. The other reason is, which may sound strange to the American ear, because we are the only party which openly supports the middle class. There is a socialistic ethos in Israel which stems from the old days of the Histadrut and Mapai, which looked down its nose on the middle class as a bourgeois, old-fashioned, outdated class which has nothing to do with the modern socialistic Israel. But this is the class which now runs the country, and it never before had a proclaimed representative.
One of the things that irritates a lot of Israelis is the Haredim have large families, like 10, 12 kids. They sit allegedly in the yeshivas and learn, but many of them don't work. So basically your taxes are subsidizing these people. Is that one of the core issues of
This
Shinui?
is one of the core issues. 80% of the Haredi men don't work. In America, the Haredim work. They work very hard to support their families. Here, they have created a system by which they are being supported by the state. State means taxpayers' money, which means that the secular population, which is the tax-paying population, is supporting a group of people who practically don't recognize Israel, who are anti-Zionists, who don't participate in our social life, who don't take care of our security, and live off others. And this is unacceptable. And since I am leading the campaign against this situation, in response I'm getting many votes.
Rabbinical people, rabbinical authorities, have they tried to come against you, or they're silent on
Oh
it?
yes, if you read the Orthodox and the ultra-Orthodox newspapers, I get there's 50 cuttings a day attacking me. It's amazing, they are obsessed with me. I became an icon. By the way, I am not against Jewish religion. I am against the misuse of Jewish religion for very practical, down-to-earth monetary purpose. I also fight to have the Reform and conservative Jews recognized here as equals, because this still doesn't exist in Israel.
You know the name Rabbi Kook, who was the first chief rabbi of Palestine. Do you recall, are you familiar with what he proposed as religious Zionism?
Oh yes, if Rabbi Kook's views would prevail nowadays with the Haredim, I would have no fight with them. He was a Zionist.
Right.
He was a bridge between the secular and the religious Jewry in this country, before it was a state. And unfortunately, he has been, he is now an icon of the seculars who tried to remind the religious Jews that the Rabbi Kook existed. They believe more in the other Rabbi Kook, who became an extremist.
That's his son, the son.
His son, yes.
Yeah. Do you, how do you define a Jew? In your life, what does it mean to be a Jew?
Well, I'm so Jewish that the need to define myself as to be a Jew seems to me very strange. In Israel, it's the easiest thing in the world. In the diaspora, it may be more difficult. But if you live in Israel and think of yourself as a Jew and were born a Jew into a Jewish family, I'm a survivor of the Holocaust, I speak Hebrew, I live in Israel. The Bible is my basic book without religious aspects. The Bible is my history, my geography, my literature, my language, my folklore. I am very deeply rooted in everything Jewish, except the formal part of Jewishness. I don't go to the synagogue, and all that I do is that I light the candles on Hanukkah and have a Seder night. But this in Israel is less important than it would be abroad, where you have very few ways to be Jewish if you are not attached to some Jewish organization.
Do you believe that the religious courts should not be involved with civil marriages, burials, etc.? Do you believe that should be secular in a sense?
We should, one of our proposals is to have civil marriages in Israel. Of course, we would not disallow religious marriages, but it's absurd that Israel is the only Western society in the entire world which has no civil marriage, and 5,000 couples travel every year to Cyprus to marry there in a civil marriage because they have no way to do so in Israel. This is one of these absurdities of Israeli life which we want to change.
The Russian...
But I wouldn't, the rabbis should have their ceremonies, and whoever wants to have a religious marriage or a religious marriage plus a civil marriage, it's fine with me.
It's like in the United States. Do you get many voters or many people who belong to your party who are Russian Jews? They're mixed,
yes.
and they're, you had a big immigration. You have about 1 million people.
We have great support amongst them, and it's sure that quite a few mandates we are getting from the Russians for two reasons. First of all, they are the most oppressed by those government offices which are run by the ultra-Orthodox politicians, particularly the Ministry of the Interior, which deals with issuing documents and rights and to new immigrants, and who are trying to vet this population according to its religious background. The other reason we have such support from them is the Russian Aliyah was middle class in Russia because nearly 70% of them are academicians. It's a very highly qualified group of people who lost their middle class status when they made Aliyah, in the sense that those who were doctors in Russian hospitals became here sanitary workers in Israeli hospitals. It took them a few years to recreate their previous standing in society. They are now doctors, again. And by becoming part of the Israeli middle class, they find in Shinui, in my party, a response to their needs.
There are people who say that Shinui Party is like the old Dash Party, which was led by Yigal Yadin and Shmuel Tamir, and they were, by the way, very influential in bringing about the first Camp David, which I worked upon. They were very instrumental in helping Menachem Begin at that point bring that peace.
I would not deny that we have some common traces with Dash.
But do you expect that your party will be a continuous party?
The Dash really lost its hold from the very beginning. They just entered parliament with 15 members, I think.
Right, but they had a lot of interesting characters. Mayor Amit.
Yes, and Shmuel Tamir. But what they didn't have is cohesion.
Right.
While Shinui has already passed the test in the previous Knesset with our 6 members keeping together, though we came from different political views as far as the peace and the security is concerned. And we stood up to all the challenges, so that I have good reason to believe that we will keep together now that we are enlarging our scope.
So you believe Shinui will become a permanent part of the political institutions of Israel?
Oh yes, no doubt about that.
This is one of the things that people talk about. They think that, it's a contrarian view that goes against the religious at this point, but ultimately these type of parties fly away, in a sense.
Well, those who say so have a historical reason to believe that, because this happened to
all the time.
Some parties in the past. I think that we have now a cohesive party concentrating on 2 very relevant issues of our society, and this is the religious coercion and the economic needs of the middle class. I think that these 2 issues are strong enough, sufficiently strong to hold together the party and help it become a major factor in our political system.
10 years ago, if I talked to you, we'd probably be in a cafe and we'd talk about journalism. Do you believe that 10 years now forward, you're head of a political party which may become institutional in Israel?
You may stay young. I am growing older. I'm 71, so I would need to be a Churchill to be in politics in 10 years' time.
Do you, Has there been a time when Arik Sharon has asked you to join the cabinet?
Oh, yes. First Barak asked me to join his cabinet, and then Sharon asked me to join his cabinet, and I refused to both of them for the reason that they had Shas in their cabinet, and I refused to sit with the ultra-Orthodox in the same government, because you don't join a cabinet just to sit there. You join a cabinet because you have an agenda. And if your agenda is to revoke all the laws which favor the ultra-Orthodox, the Haredim, then you don't have a chance to promote these laws where they sit with you in the same coalition.
When you're in a Knesset, in the Miznon, in the dining room there, and you see Shas people, are you collegial with them?
Yes, it's interesting. I have quite a good discourse with them on a private level. They are sort of Israeli folklore. They are mainly good-humored people. The people I have practically no discourse with, and we don't actually talk, are the Agudat Israel, the Ashkenazi ultra-Orthodox, who are much more verbisser,
Angry.
much more angry, much more anti-Zionist, and much more sophisticated in making use of the political system to gain material benefits.
Is that the Rabbi Ravitz?
Rabbi Ravitz, Rabbi Gafni, Litzman, Porush.
So these people basically don't want to get too involved with you.
No, I don't want, well, it's mutual, I would say. Yes, it's mutual.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Get the book that inspired the award-winning movie, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the Backdoor Channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover the mystery of the Kaddish.
What do you think of this decision of the Supreme Court to allow Tibi and Azmi Bashara to go forward in the election process?
I am one of the most devoted supporters of our Supreme Court. I believe that our judicial system is the last bastion of Israeli liberal democracy, guarding it from incursions of corruption and political cannibalism, and therefore we in our party decided in advance that we will support what the judges say about these people and not what politicians say about them.
All right, Tommy, you're a bright guy. You've been a writer all your life. How do you fuse the secular and the religious in this country and get to be called a nation. How do you do that?
I don't have anything against the religious. I'm not fighting the Mafdal. I have respect for religious Jews who were Zionists, who support the country, who go to the army, who work, pay taxes. I would think it very strange if we didn't have in Israel religious Jews. But there was a tradition that the Mizrahi Party was a bridge between religious and secular Jews, and not a dividing factor. Now they are a divisive factor. If I was a religious Jew with a kippah, I would support Shinui, because the ultra-Orthodox are harming the reputation of religious Jews in Israel, of decent religious Jews in Israel. They're harming the image of religion in Israel. And what is most important, that Israeli secular, intelligent, educated youth is refusing now to accept Judaism as a guiding light, because they say that if what the Haredim do is the essence of Judaism, then they don't want to have anything to do with it.
This may surprise you. I had a dinner the other night with a bunch of modern Orthodox Jews in Israel who wear the knitted yarmulkes, and 4 of them are voting for you because they are anti-Haredi. They can't stand the disproportion of money going to Haredi society, which is not basically active in the labor force, and they're paying the taxes for it. And it was a big argument at the table whether they couldn't, but I saw at least 4 votes for you at that table, which was quite interesting.
This is what I said, that I would vote for Shinui if I was a decent religious Jew, worried that the Haredim are driving away the majority of Israelis from religion. They are doing great harm. I think that now the smarter among the Haredi rabbis understand that they overdid the act and they did more harm than good to themselves. But it will take a long time before you reverse this procedure.
How has Yigal Amir's assassination of Rabin changed the country?
It made the country more introspective, and of course we lost some of our innocence. In a way, the assassination of Rabin did to us what 11th of September did to America. So suddenly we understood, as you did,
it's an awakening,
that some impossible things can happen.
If I say the word or the name Arafat, what does that say to you?
Arafat is not a partner for peace. We cannot negotiate with him. He decided that he will go down in history as Salah ad-Din, the great savior of the Arabs, and not as a mayor of Gaza who deals with daily problems of health in his clinics. And therefore, he doesn't want to have peace with us, and he's supporting terror, and we cannot talk to him.
When I say settlements to you, what role do they play in the land of Israel?
Ultimately, in order to have peace with the Palestinians, we will have to dismantle the majority of the settlements. We cannot forever defend every small settlement with 20 houses, send there 100 soldiers to defend 100 people day and night, and this is not a working proposition. But this has to be done within a peace agreement with the Palestinians. The major settlements, which are fortunately along the old border, will remain within Israel. The small settlements which are dispersed among Arab villages will have to be dismantled, but not unilaterally, because if you do it unilaterally, then you give in to terror, invite more terror. It has to be done within peace settlement with the Palestinians.
How do you rejuvenate the economy here? I mean, tourism is down, obviously, high-tech is down. Well, that's world also, so it's not only Israel. How do you move the economy?
The economy has been hurt by two external factors. One is the Intifada, which killed tourism, which is one of the major industries in Israel. And the other thing is high-tech. We have based our economy on high-tech very successfully. But high-tech collapsed not here, but in America. We hope for the revival of high-tech. But right now, we propose to do things. One is that the Israeli bureaucracy is an enormous machine which is eating up a great deal of the budget, and we do things that we should reform our bureaucracy and save many millions, many billions of shekels. The other thing is that we think that the ultra-Orthodox are now getting directly or indirectly from our economy about 10 billion shekels a year, which can also be saved. This is on one side, on the negative side. On the positive side, I think we should revive the economy by reducing the taxes of the middle class, because only the middle class is capable of reviving the economy. But if the middle class is being so hard-pressed as it is right now, it doesn't have the capital needed to revive the economy.
Do you think you're losing a lot of young talent that are emigrating from Israel?
I don't think that, when there is a great appeal of California or of Boston to those who are highly educated mainly in high tech, then we lose people. When you have in this field Broch in America, they come back. I don't think this is presently a danger, but I am now supporting at least one Orthodox family. My son is supporting 2 Orthodox families. If my grandson will have to support 4 Orthodox families, one day he will pick up his laptop and go. So my struggle.
I mean, the taxes that you're...
We have to keep those families,
you've run
and those families are multiplying in a way that we are not.
Right.
And therefore, this in every generation, you have at least twice as many ultra-Orthodox to support, and there is a limit to what the secular middle class is prepared to do.
There are many projections about population in 20 years from now that the Israeli Arab population will overcome the Jewish population. I think the average Jewish population is about 2 or 1.8.
No, it is not. These calculations are made if you don't leave the territories, and they add the Palestinians who are now under Jewish rule. While I think that one of the good reasons that we have to end the occupation is that demography is a much more important security factor than geography. The Israeli Arabs are not endangering us in a way that you are saying. Their numbers are increasing faster than ours, but not to this extent. By the way, part of the reason that the numbers are so increasing is because the Haredim push through laws which encourage large families, and except for the Haredim, the only people who make a good use of that are the Muslims in this country. So it is they used to say that encouraging large Jewish families is improving on our demography, but they forgot that simultaneously you are in the same measure increasing the number of children in Muslim families. I'm not afraid of that. There will always be enough aliyah to counterbalance this advantage that they have in the birth rate, the Israeli Arabs. This is not a danger. We have to live with them, and we have to give them equal rights because we are a liberal democracy.
So you're optimistic about the future of Israel?
I am optimistic, but I do foresee very difficult times before it is better.
And what about the peace process? Do you see?
I know how the conflict will end. I just don't know when it will end.
And George Bush, are you satisfied with?
Oh, he's a very pleasant surprise, Bush, yes. We were all afraid of him, and he became one of the best friends we ever had in the White House.
All right, we got to cut for a break. We'll come right back with Tommy Lapid, who is giving you an interesting introspection of what the Shinui Party is. And obviously, he's absolutely not a racist. He's a man who feels very strongly about his Judaism and is very pluralistic about it. So I think his conversation will set the record straight, at least in the United States.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Get the book that inspired the award-winning movie, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the Backdoor Channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover The Mystery of the Kaddish.
Every book.
We're back. We're talking with Tommy Lapid of the Shinui Party, which is a really strong party right now on the Israeli map. It's the polls say, Tommy won't talk about it, but he could get as many as 17 votes. That's a lot of votes. He states unequivocally that he would not join a government with Shas. Today, the Labor Party announced through its leader, Mr. Mitzner, that they would not join a unity government. I wouldn't bet my last dollar on that. I would bet that there is a good possibility that they will join the government. What do you think, by the way?
I said so yesterday and today to everybody who wanted to listen. Maybe Mr. Mitzner will not join Mr. Sharon's government, but Mr. Mitzner's parties will. They may leave him
yeah, I think he might be deposed. I know Fuad was on my show, the former defense minister, last week, and I think that he's ready with 4 horses to join a unity government.
Yes, and we should have a unity government. These are very difficult times, and we should present a united force vis-à-vis our economic and political difficulties. But this time I think it should be a secular unity government with the Labour Party under Sharon and with myself in the same government.
This party headed by a fellow named Avigdor Lieberman. Would you be opposed to sitting with him too?
I would not oppose him to join if we have a Labour Likud Shinui government. I would not sit in a government of the right wing without the Labour in it, because I don't want to be the leftist in a very right-wing government.
So the two parties that you really would not sit with is Shas and the Aguda, is that
Yes.
it? And
I want to emphasize, not because they are Orthodox Jews, but because I have an agenda of secular equality which has no hope to materialize if they are also part of the government. For instance, for me, a very simple matter. For them, it's a matter of existential matter. I think that conservative and liberal and reform rabbis should have the same standing in Israel as have Orthodox rabbis. They don't want to know about it.
Tommy, you're an interesting writer. You're a guy who spent a lot of time in media. All of a sudden, one day you woke up, and I remember sitting with you in your house at the first time you were thinking about being a politician. Now you seem to be a pretty sophisticated one. What impelled you to do this?
First of all,
listen,
I was a political journalist all my life. The distance between writing about politics and doing politics is not so great. You deal with the same subjects. You meet the same people. You consider the same issues. Secondly, it was offered to me to lead the Shinui Party, which was an offer that I found very hard to refuse. Thirdly, I want to make sure that this country is safe for my grandson, and I want to be sure that my grandson will want to live in this country. And I'm using whatever political clout I can gather to make this sure.
So, at the end of the day, you did it because of a national purpose. You certainly didn't have designs to become the Prime Minister of Israel. You just wanted to, in a sense, protect the element in Israel that you thought was not being protected. Is that correct?
I wanted to protect the secular middle class, which I think is the basis of Israeli society and which was underrepresented in the Knesset.
Is there a lot of pressure on you from the other parties to make a deal with them, to join the government, to try and make compromise? You know, it's not unusual for one guy to say something politically. You know this. You've been a political reporter. Say, you know, I definitely, Bush said it, George Sr., I will not raise taxes. Read my lips. He raised taxes. He got out. Is there a lot of pressure on you to say, you know, Tommy, come on,
yes,
you know?
Of course. This is very interesting that people who demand from politicians to be decent people at the same time propose them not to be decent. I think that a big part of our present unheard of popularity stems from the fact that I promised our voters in the previous elections not to join a government with the ultra-Orthodox parties. And the fact that I kept the promise became a legend. It shouldn't be a legend. It should be natural. But it became a legend. And because I refused both to Barak and Sharon to join them. I think that there is nothing wrong with a politician keeping his word.
It's unusual, though, right?
Yeah.
The political spectrum keeps moving back and forth here. What is your position if Sharon forms a government only with the religious bloc? I think the predictions are he could get 61, 62. How long can...
Not the religious bloc, but the right
wing, yeah.
Well, certainly I will not join that, and certainly he will not have a stable government, and he will be pulled into right-wing stances which he cannot sustain, certainly not preserve his very good relations with Bush, and he may even spoil the very doubtful relations with the Europeans we have now. So I don't think he will go for that.
Let's talk about Europe for a minute. You're pretty familiar with anti-Semitism. France looks a little bit nasty now. You see a rise of anti-Semitism in Europe now?
I don't see a rise in the traditional neo-Nazi, fascist anti-Semitism. The rise is in the anti-Semitism promoted by the Muslims, which is strange because the Arabs are Semites, but the anti-Judaism. This is being sharpened by the fanatic Muslim movements which are also behind bin Laden, and which also endanger Western society but are using the Jews as their easiest target. This kind of anti-Semitism, which leads to incidents in synagogues, etc., is on the increase and will increase more.
So your opinion is that the Muslim population is, in a sense, infiltrating Western society. France, a friend of mine was in Italy yesterday. He said 10% of the population there is Muslim. France has an overwhelming amount. That's a great challenge, first of all.
I don't think that 10% of Italy is Muslim, but certainly a great percentage of France is Muslim.
Yes, that's for sure.
The Italians are non-anti-Semitic by tradition. The French have an anti-Semitic tradition ever since the days of Dreyfus.
But Britain, people say that Britain can become a Muslim country by the way its population is growing too.
No, I don't think a Muslim country, but certainly the Muslim influence is growing. And they are very militant, the British Muslims. I do subscribe to Huntington's theory that we are now on the way of a war of civilizations.
Yeah.
And mind you, it's perhaps interesting to observe the following fact. That we are being told for years that America is under attack from the Muslim world because of its support for Israel. But now it starts to work the other way. That we in Israel are under attack from the Muslim world partly because we are being conceived as the representative of American culture in the Middle East.
How do you view your Arab neighbors today? Let's talk about Egypt, first of all. Are you satisfied with the relationship?
Well, I'm not satisfied. The Egyptians are keeping our peace as cold as possible. And of course, Egypt is not a democracy. And there is always a danger that the Muslim Brotherhood will bring to a revolution there, which will recreate what happened in Iran and in Tehran. So I prefer the present regime to what may happen, but I am not very happy with it.
I spoke with Fuad, your former defense minister, about it. They thought Mubarak is a pretty good leader. And in terms of Israel, they were fairly satisfied. They said that Mubarak is the leader of Arab people, not of Jews. They were also fairly satisfied with Hussein of Jordan. How about?
I have also a very favorable view of Hussein of Jordan. And I'm also afraid that he may have problems with keeping his throne.
Iraq, do you have a position on if America does go to war, what do you think will happen to Israel? Will it get a benefit out of that, or will it be a danger?
There may be some sporadic marginal attack on Israel. I don't think Israel is in danger if America attacks Iraq, and I do think that Bush, the determination of Bush to dismantle Iraq, even by force, is fully justified.
It's good policy, in your opinion.
It's good for us, but it's good for the free world and good for America. What Bush understood, and what many people in Europe don't want to understand, the European will understand the danger of this fanatic type of Islam, of Muslims, of dictators like Saddam. You know when? When the Big Ben falls down as in an attack of some Islamist bombers, or when the Eiffel Tower comes down because it's undermined by Islamic terrorists, or when the Brandenburger Tor in Berlin comes down because some Islamists thought that the Germans are Christian, dangerous Christians. Europe doesn't want to know what fanatic Islam means in its more determined way as a decision that this Western civilization is a danger to Allah, and that it is not only justified, but its duty it is to destroy the Western civilized world. It is a frustration of the Muslim world because it didn't succeed in anything that it wanted to do, and it now uses its frustration as an explosive force which may endanger the existence of the Western world in the next 10, 20 years. And we in Israel are in the forefront of this fight.
Do you think the most formidable enemy of Israel is Iran?
Certainly Iraq, but now you are having a hold on Iraq, and ultimately Iran, yes. The type of fanatic mullahs who rule Iran, if they do create an atomic bomb, they will consider the possibility of trying it on Israel.
They're also committed to the destruction of Israel. I mean, that's part of their policy.
They are this is the only country in the world which openly declares that its policy is to destroy another country. But mind you, you will not sleep peacefully in New York if the Iranis have a thermonuclear bomb. They are sending ships into your ports. They can place it into a ship anytime. Israel is only the small Satan. The big Satan is America.
All right. Give me your opinion of Shimon Peres.
Shimon Peres is one of the most intelligent politicians who ever worked our...
Is he still a voice in politics today in Israel?
There is a tendency to have an ironic attitude toward him as a person who outgrew his purpose and holds on to the reins of power by every possible means. I disagree with a great many of his views and opinions, but he is certainly one person that I would rather talk to than to some people whom I do agree with.
Well, he made a statement a couple of weeks ago, I'm sure you're familiar with, that he would like to see a government formed that is in a way secular and omits the religious parties.
Yeah, he agreed with what I suggest.
Very much so.
I was very glad to read that, but he will support different views if his party dictates so, because he wants to be close to the source of power.
Your committee, what committees did you serve on in the Knesset?
Defense and law, the two most important committees.
And did you find those revealing for you? I mean, did you learn a lot from those committees?
At the Defense Committee, not so much in the full committee, but there are some subcommittees which are the only places which you will really learn important things, and the only committees in our public life which people keep secrets.
How does that work, by the way? Can you ask to be on a committee? How does that work in the Knesset? I don't know. The appointments to the subcommittees are not only political but also personal. And to get on a committee, I know how it works in the United States.
Oh no, to get on a committee is similar to what happens in the United States. It's apportioned according to the size of your parties. So the number of members you have in a certain committee depends on how many members of parliament you have in the...
And who elects the chairman of the committee?
Is also by the political system, by the majority of them, but there are certain committees which are traditionally given to the opposition.
So Could you become the chairman of a committee if you had, let's assume, 15, 16?
Yes, of course, but yes, of course.
Is that
We have now a chairman of my party is chairing the economic committee. My friend Poraz, who is a very able man, my deputy in the party, is the head of the economic committee.
All right, Tommy, I want to know three things from you. Who would you say are your greatest heroes in history? You're a great historian. You're a reader of history, it's sure. Who are the great people that you think in the last 20th century?
Oh, absolutely, Winston Churchill.
And number two?
Ben-Gurion.
And number three?
Einstein.
Funny thing, they're all Jews.
No, they are not. Churchill is not.
Oh, you're right. Well, always a pleasure to sit with Tommy. He's always interesting, fascinating. He's probably one of the most intellectual members of the Israeli political character today. And one can really tell that he's probably an excellent Jew and not a racist. We'll see you next week.
In modern Middle East history, only one peace treaty has stood the test of time, the 1978 Camp David Accord. In the new documentary film, Backdoor Channels, The Price of Peace, learn the true story behind the greatest diplomatic achievement of our time and its lessons for the future.
The price of peace is very high to have this courageous man and my close friend killed.
Winner of the Telly Award for Best Cultural Program. Now available at select stores including Barnes & Noble and online at Amazon.com. Get the book that inspired the award-winning movie, Leon Charney's Backdoor Channels. Learn about the Backdoor Channel negotiations that led to the historic 1978 Israeli-Egyptian peace treaty. Become a witness to history and order Backdoor Channels online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Also available at all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at iTunes or Audible.com. Relive history. Order Backdoor Channels. Get best-selling author Leon Charney's latest book, The Battle of the Two Talmuds. Join Charney as he explores years of Jewish history to find out why and how Talmudic scholars and rabbis abandoned the Holy Land for the lands of the diaspora. Learn about the power struggles behind the creation of the Jerusalem and Babylonian Talmuds. It's a book critics call engaging and enlightening. A book which will be of interest to people of every faith. Now available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or download the audiobook of The Battle of the Two Talmuds at iTunes or Audible.com. Leon Charney sets out to discover the true meaning of the Kaddish, the Jewish custom of reciting a prayer to commemorate the death of a close relative. Join Charney as he finds out the history of the Kaddish and how it has evolved. Reviewed as a refreshing walk through Jewish history and a book that deserves to be read by both Jews and non-Jews, The Mystery of the Kaddish is now available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all other retailers and booksellers. Or download the audiobook at Audible.com or on iTunes. Discover The Mystery of the Kaddish.